Hey everybody, my name is 4D Clif, and I am back for a brand new video. For a bit of a hindsight here and stuff like that, in case no one is aware, in my previous video I did mention, but I'm going to mention here again, I actually changed my channel name, alright? So, from now on, I'm going to be 4D Clif, okay? Instead of it just being Clif Ford, I'm going to be 4D Clif, okay? The main reason for this is that a lot of times whenever I would do like a search for my channel name, like Clif Ford, it would always bring up the big red dog, right? You know, Clifford the big red dog, it always bring that up constantly, okay? That's the main search result, right? Even if I was spelling it correctly with the space in between the two names, it was still bringing up as Clifford the Big Red Dog nearly so many times, okay? So I figured if there was more of like a better search engine or more of a better way to actually search for my name, I should probably think of something for that, okay? So I decided to basically just take my name and just rearrange the letters again, okay? And because I do like talking about One Piece, and I do like discussing One Piece in general, and I made thousands and hundreds of One Piece videos. I mean, not literally not literally like thousands, but I made hundreds of videos. Some of them I talked about more than once. So really, when you narrow it down, it's probably, I don't know, maybe like just 50, maybe not even 50, right? So yes, but to point out here, I am still Clif Ford, but at the same time, I'm just going to go by a different name for my channel name, okay? So you can still refer to me as Clif Ford, alright? Even if I do refer myself as Clif Ford, that's fine. But just to clarify here, from now on, my channel name is going to be 4D Clif, alright? Alright. Thank you so much for that quick intro like that. Let's get into the video. So, for today's video, we are actually going to be talking about One Piece topic, okay? I really want to try to get back to talking about some One Piece things, and I really, it's been quite a long time since I've actually discussed an actual One Piece discussion video, okay? Alright, so what I'm going to basically be discussing here is nothing new, and a lot of people have already been talking about it themselves, okay? Is potentially what exactly are the two Delph fruits that Rox himself is after, okay? And I do want to go over a few things that I want to talk about in my own terms and opinions, but I'm also going to basically go over some of the stuff that's already been mentioned before, right? Now, there's a lot of Delph fruits to go over. Of course, we can't necessarily list off every single one, but there are a few that I feel like could be important to actually go over for a bit of an explanation, and maybe we can actually understand exactly what we could expect and what it could actually mean on why Rox actually wants these Delph fruits exactly, okay? Now, before I continue on even further, just a quick note here, you might hear a bit of a fan noise in the background, okay? I do have my fan going and everything, and that's because that we don't have air conditioning currently right now, so it's basically hot in our house. So I have the fan blowing in order to get a little cool air blowing, okay? So just to clarify there, okay? That's the only thing on that part right there, right? So now let's get into the actual topic of the video itself, okay? So in the last chapter, chapter 1156, okay? During this chapter, when we get to the Rox Pirates situation here, Rox actually mentions something very important, right? He mentions that he is after two Delph fruits, okay? And that these two Delph fruits are going to help him to basically, well, we're not exactly sure. We know for a fact that Rox aimed to be king of the world, so obviously his goals isn't tied to, like, destroying the Mary Joannes like that, like basically getting rid of the Celestial Dragons so he can remain in power, right? That's most likely what we can assume, okay? Of course, there could be other things in general like that. There could be a whole part of the story that we're completely missing here, but in context, it definitely does seem like these Delph fruits that he was after is a goal or something that is needed to accomplish this goal, okay? Now, why that could be the case, we're not really sure. Now, out of all the Delph fruits in general and like that, when discussing these two Delph fruits, only one of them were particularly given some general context and ideas, even though we don't actually know what the Delph fruit is exactly, and don't even know if the one that we're speculating it to actually be is even the right one. But it is important that we actually look at it and actually understand the context of it, okay? So, during the whole conversations like that, there were a few things to actually go over. The first thing is this, okay? First, let's mention the Gallia Giants, okay? So, Rox himself is also trying to find the Gallia Giants, right? Now, the Gallia Giants like that are basically like this, so for instance, right? When we first come across something like that, we are first mentioned to them during a conversation that Harold is having with Jorol. Where's it? Jorol. I keep getting the two Elder Giants names mixed up and like that. It's either Jorol or Jorol. I keep forgetting who's who, but I don't really have time to actually do a research. I mean, I suppose I could, but for the sake of it, I'm sure you guys get what I'm trying to say here, okay? So, Jorol or Jorol, whoever this is, like that, does mention the whole situation that, no, these giants are indeed real, it's like that, and Harold basically thought they were a myth, okay? And that they seem to be like an old giant shipwright like army in a sense, okay? And it is speculated that they're the ones who actually built the original Noah that is part of the legend that the Fisherman Islands people passed down like that, okay? And that the whole situation of, like, Joy Boy's promise to Poseidon himself, okay? Poseidon, right? Which is currently Shirahoshi, okay? So, for instance, okay? Rox does mention the whole need and stuff like that, and even having Big Mom and everyone try and find the Galley Giants, okay? Now, it is possibly speculated and theorized that the Giants that were frozen when the Straw Hats were in Punk Hazard are possibly the Galley Giants, okay? We don't know that for sure, but it is possible that those are the Galley Giants, okay? And really, there's no reason to not believe that it definitely does seem to be the most logical answer, okay? However, there's more to go over into it, right, because of the whole situation here, okay? So, for instance, right, when Rox does mention the whole need of the two Delph Fruits, he does mention that one of them, he needs to be eaten by Harold, right? And even mentions that his power will only be awakened if Harold eats it, okay? Now, what exactly could Rox even mean by this is hard to understand here, okay? Now, there are some things to actually go over here on Delph Fruits, okay? We've never seen an actual Delph Fruit, in terms of logic, actually be tied to a specific race or species within the One Piece world, okay? There are certain Delph Fruits that are indeed tied to a specific person better than anyone else, right? Like, for instance, right, you look at Law's Delph Fruit just for an example here, okay? It is stated that, you know, the whole situation with the Ope Nomi basically being the operation fruit allows someone to basically become like an operation person, right? They allows them to basically operate, right? Kind of like a doctor, okay? And that it is stated that you need to have a very good degree of, you know, medical expertise to understand what you're doing, okay? But that doesn't necessarily mean that if a random person eats the Delph Fruit, they can't actually utilize some of its abilities or even use it, okay? Like, another good example you can do is like Luffy, okay? Like, Luffy being, because of his personality and how he is like that, the Gum Gum Fruit totally makes sense for him, okay? But that doesn't necessarily mean that a complete person who is hardcore and like that, who's a bit laid back and cool and like that, yeah, cool. So, won't probably be able to use the stretchiness of the powers as well, right? They'd be able to use the powers as well. And it is something to understand that the whole idea of awakening in itself is a very rare thing, okay? When the whole mention of awakenings even came up, we didn't even possibly think that even every Delph Fruit could awaken, okay? Some people even thought it was just limited to zones. And then when it came into being revealed that even Paramecius can be awakened, and now we're just to the point where we're having to wait to see if a Logia can awaken, alright? Okay, but we're not here to talk about awakenings, okay? We're here to talk about the two Delph Fruits that Rox is after, okay? Alright. So, to continue on even further, right? So, we know for a fact that Rox does mention the whole need of needing two Delph Fruits, okay? We know for a fact that he is after the Galley Giants, okay? Those are the two prominent things that he's after, okay? Now, during the whole conversations that is continuing even further, there are a few things to go over and add, okay? For instance, okay? Because these whole Galley Giants have been frozen for so long like that, a lot of the Rox pirates themselves are in a bit of, like, wondering if these giants could even still be alive, alright? So that is something in itself, right? If they are alive, will they even be able to be revived, okay? That's one thing to basically add here on something to look at in terms of the Delph Fruit itself. However, there's another notion here where it is basically mentioned that I believe the character's name is Barbel. I might be mispronouncing that word wrong, like that. He does basically state here very carefully that even if they were somehow brought back, they wouldn't exactly have to follow you for no reason. And that's when Rox basically speaks up with something very important here, where he states, that's why I need the power of Harold, okay? So, going over this, it definitely does seem like the Delph Fruit they are after, or one of them in specific, has something to do with Elbaf, right? And Rox even mentions that one of them is most likely in Elbaf, okay? So that is the possibility. But what exactly could this Delph Fruit be? Now, let's go over some of the possible options and really understand the whole general idea of what these Delph Fruits could be, if they are possibly, okay? First, let's look at this, okay? So, the first thing I want to discuss here is Loki's Delph Fruit, right? Let's start off with Loki himself, okay? Because Loki was stated to actually eaten the legendary Delph Fruit of Elbaf like that after the whole situation of the King Harold basically dying like that, where Loki is potentially the person responsible or actually framed for the whole situation, is still left in the air until we actually get the more details here, okay? But it was stated that he actually ate the legendary Delph Fruit, okay? And he even stated to Luffy and Harudans like that, when the whole situation of Emu possessing Gunko's body, basically trying to take control of Elbaf itself, okay? He even mentions, I think you're going to basically need my power, or in simple terms, you're going to need my help, okay? But what exactly is the Delph Fruit, we don't know yet, right? There's been plenty of speculations, plenty of theories and ideas on what exactly the Delph Fruit that Loki ate, but currently we don't actually know that just yet, okay? We are still left in the air to try and figure that out, okay? But because we don't have enough information on the Delph Fruit itself, it is possible that it is the Delph Fruit that Rox is after because he stated that it was on Elbaf, okay? But there could also be possible situations here and other notions as well, okay? So let's continue on and even look at other things to add here, okay? What are other Delph Fruits that we could potentially look at for a general context, okay? Let's start off with Blackbeard, okay? So, because Blackbeard was officially revealed to be the son of Rox, okay? And we know for a fact that Blackbeard himself, he went through the whole ordeal of aligning or basically following Whitebeard's crew for nearly 40 years just so he can attain the Yami Yami Nomi, okay? Which he killed Thatch over just to attain, alright? It has been his whole goal to attain that, okay? Now, there is possibilities that a lot of people will basically theorize an idea that the Yami Yami Nomi is potentially one of the Devil Fruits that Rox was after, alright? And that could make a lot of sense, okay? There is no reason to necessarily not think that it's not, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's any reason to state that it is, okay? It's still left in the air, right? And with the whole notion, another unique idea could be the Guru Guru Nomi, right? Which was originally Whitebeard's Devil Fruit, but basically became Blackbeard's Devil Fruit when he basically managed to actually kill off Whitebeard and steal his Devil Fruit, okay? Now, we haven't been officially confirmed yet if Whitebeard himself has the Guru Guru Nomi during his time with the Rox Pirates, right? We haven't been confirmed that just yet, so there's still a possibility, alright? Another notion to go over here to basically add is that because the whole chapter of 1156 actually included the Kuja Pirates, it's because currently right now in the story, the leader of the Kuja Pirates is Boa Hancock, and Rox himself did state that he was interested in having Hancock's Devil Fruit power, the Mero Mero Nomi, right? Which basically is translated as the Love Love Fruit, right? Allows someone to actually basically cast a stone spell on someone, right? If someone basically is memorized by the person's beautiness like that, they are immediately turned to stone, okay? Maybe that could be one possibility for one of the Devil Fruits that is that basically Rox wants, right? It is a very good one, right? So, but I feel like there's other things to basically list here, okay? Another power we can look at is potentially Lost Devil Fruit, right? The Abi Abi Nomi, okay? Or Operation Fruit, okay? There have been speculations and theories that Rox himself might already have that Devil Fruit, right? And if that's the case, then it wouldn't make a lot of sense, because if he does state that he's after 2 Devil Fruits, then the whole idea of having the Abi Abi Nomi or finding it wouldn't make a lot of sense here, okay? Now, we haven't been officially confirmed if he does have the Devil Fruit or not, but just in case, let's just discuss it, okay? So, the whole Abi Abi Nomi, right, basically allows someone to become an Operation Human, right? They can do plenty of unique things like that, that is, well, to be honest, like, even through operation standards of a medical thing, it's way beyond normal, okay? Like, way beyond normal, right? So, but let's think about other things, right? Let's look at work stuff, right? The Yami Yami Nomi, okay? Or, sorry, not Yami, I'm sorry, Yomi Yomi Nomi, alright? Not Yami Yami, Yomi Yomi. Okay, don't want to get it all wrong there, okay? So the Yomi Yomi Nomi allows someone to basically revive themselves back from the dead, okay? And because the whole situation of, like, discussing the Galilean Giants, even wondering that it could even be brought back, right? If they're still alive or they're dead, how exactly could they even be brought back, okay? And there have been sort of theories and ideas that there could be another Devil Fruit similar to Brook, okay? Where the whole idea here is that where Brook's Devil Fruit actually allows someone to revive themselves, this one would allow someone to revive other people in general, okay? Maybe that's one thing, right? And that is an interesting concept here, but really when it comes to it, like, I feel like the whole general concept of like, the frozen giants themselves still being alive, I don't think it's really the most important thing here, right? I think it's the idea of stating that they need the power of Herald, right? They need a giant in general, itself, in order for this Devil Fruit to truly be unique, right? To truly experience what it's capable of, alright? Now, what exactly that is, we don't know, but it is important, okay? Okay, so there were other unique things as well, right? So, going over inside that, I think I listed off everything potentially, okay? But really, when it comes to it, I have my own unique idea, okay? And I'm sure there's other people who probably thought about this as well, okay? But in reality and in context, the Devil Fruits that I actually think that Rox could be after, right? And I think Oda might actually hinted at this within the chapter number itself, okay? Now, yes, I could be overthinking this, I could be completely stretching this, okay? Alright, so one idea to basically state here inside that is this, okay? So let's start off with this, right? The chapter number itself, 1156, okay? 1156, okay? Now, when reading the Gorosei context of this like that, let's break out these numbers into 4 separate translations here, okay? So, 1 and 1, alright? 1 in Japanese is translated as Ichi, okay? However, another translation is Hitotsu, okay? And a shortening of that can be Hito, alright? So, reading each of those ones as Hito Hito, okay? Now, if this basically sounds familiar to anyone, or if anyone recognizes the word or translation of Hito Hito, that's the exact same Devil Fruit that Luffy and Chopper has. The Hito Hito Nomi, or basically the human fruit, okay? Now we move on to 5-6, okay? 5-6 is exactly the exact same numbers that Luffy has for his Devil Fruit, Gomu, okay? So literally, you can read the translation as Hito Hito Gomu, or human rubber, alright? Gomu being the Japanese translation for rubber itself, okay? But there's more to discuss here, okay? Looking at it in general, right? Because the whole situation here of Rox himself stating that he needs 2 Devil Fruits, okay? with the whole chapter title itself, or the chapter number, or hinting at the possibility of a human fruit model Gomu, right? Or basically Nika would transform someone into a body made of rubber, okay? Maybe there could be something else here where a 5-6 will translate into something that will basically hint at another god fruit turning someone's body into something else, okay? Now, going over in general, I believe there's only one other devil fruit in the entire One Piece series that actually has the number translations of 5-6, okay? And that's the Gomu Gomu no実, okay? Now, just for context here, like that, there's also going to be one other devil fruit I'm going to throw in there just for context, okay? But let's think about this, okay? Could the Gomu Gomu no実actually be a good benefit here, okay? Now, the Gomu Gomu no実itself is currently in the hands of Inaru himself, and a lot of people would love to see Inaru return, okay? Right now, he's currently on the moon, and it is still questionable if he's ever going to come back, okay? But to continue even further, right? Now, it might be important here, because I imagine some people will probably argue, and the whole situation of, like, the Gomu Gomu no実ever coming into context here wouldn't make a lot of sense, but let's keep in mind here, okay? Inaru himself was born like 39 years ago, okay? And the whole flashback situation is taking place before God Valley ever occurred and happened, okay? So this whole notion here is that it could be very well possible that the Gomu Gomu no実is exactly the devil fruit that Rocks is after, okay? Now, how it could actually obtain or wander in the hands of actual Inaru himself is still a questionable thing, okay? But there is a potential reason on why you might speculate or probably think on why this could be the case here, okay? So let's look at the color spread, right? If you look at the color spreads like that of chapter 1156, all right? You might notice here that when it comes to the situation that Oda chose to draw, all right? Oda chose to draw both, basically the way he chose it, like that, he basically decided to focus on the monster trio along with the three main Roger pirates, okay? Roger himself being behind Luffy, and sort of like a shadowed memory, like that, with Rayleigh being behind on the top corner behind Zoro, and then Gabon being on the bottom other part of the corner or below Sanji, right? Where Zoro and Sanji are basically seen from a up to top down proportion diagonally from where Luffy is going. And then Luffy himself is actually doing sort of the Nika dance, or basically the Gomu Gomu no giant pose that he did when he was facing against Kaido, okay? And then you'll notice that some of the Straw Hats, potentially with Robin, Chopper, Frankie, Brook, Usopp, and Jinbei are all small. But here's the thing. Behind Luffy is Nami, who's basically laying down, right? She's basically laying down, and she's one of the four Straw Hats who are in bigger proportions compared to the other Straw Hats who are basically small, okay? Now, this could be the point here on why using Nami for this can make a lot of sense, okay? Because Oda did state that if the Straw Hats who didn't have devil fruits, Oda did choose Nami to have the Gomu Gomu no実, okay? And by this logic here, if Oda is trying to tell us that the two devil fruits that Rocks is after has something to do with the Gorosei numbers of 5-6, okay? Using Nami for that context could make a lot of sense here, okay? Because, and really think about it, right? If you put Inaru in there, if you use Inaru instead, it's going to be throwing things out of whack, okay? A lot of people basically complain that Nami doesn't deserve to be there. It's like, no, right? She definitely deserves to be there, right? She deserves to be there, right? She's just as important, okay? I mean, yes, by logic, and I agree that Zoro and Sanji are the some of the two strongest fighters within the Straw Hat crew, okay? I respect that, and I believe that should be the case here, okay? Nami is powerful, Nami is wrong, and she knows how to handle her own things when it comes to her own advantages, okay? But I do agree with the concept here in that even when Peak Anime like that made a little short video like that where he even basically mentioned and that he basically saw Nami as the tail of Luffy, alright? And I actually agree with that, okay? I think Nami is best represented as the tail rather than a wing, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that she can be a great wing. I just really think that she does fit the tail more respectful, okay? And I think that's important here, right? And even when you look at it, the fact that Oda chose to put Nami behind Luffy, I feel like it's a good way to indicate that, right? That she really does feel like the tail, okay? But to continue even further, right? Yes, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have Inaru there because I feel like it would basically be throwing the answer right in our face, okay? I mean, you literally put Inaru in the color spreads like that with Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and the Roger Pirates. That's not going to make any sense. People are going to be looking at that and they're going to be reading the chapter and they're going to be thinking, huh, weird. Oda decided to put Inaru in the color spread with the three monster trios along with the three main Roger Pirates. And yet in the chapter itself, we have Rocks mentioning that he's after two Delphrids. Huh. Interesting. Very, very interesting. You think you can fool me, Oda? No, you can't fool me. I'm on to you. Yeah, I'm on to you, buddy. I'm on to you. Okay. So yes, using Nami for this might be a better understanding here, okay? And with that whole notion, there is an idea here that a lot of people do think that the Gomu Gomu no実, where it originally came from, was actually from Elbaf, okay? So there is the potential idea that some people even theorize and think that the Delphoid that Loki actually ate is not the legendary Delphoid that everyone thought, and that the one that Luffy actually ate is the true actual Delphoid itself. Where a lot of people actually think that Loki's Delphoid is actually the true version of the Robo Fruit, right? Which isn't actually called the Robo Fruit. Matter of fact, it could be possible that his Delphoid is actually more of like the plastic fruit, right? Instead of allowing someone to turn their body into rubber, their bodies turn into plastic, okay? Maybe that's something, okay? We don't know that for sure, but there have been discussions and ideas and possibilities of that actually discussed here, okay? Alright. However, let's discuss something here, right? And there might be other reasons to actually go over this in general, right? So let's take a look at something here, okay? So with the whole idea, and to put it simple, right? When I made a whole bunch of One Piece theory videos on this exact context here, and I can completely understand that a lot of people would probably find this like thrown in, and I completely understand that, okay? I really do. But just for context here, let me just explain, okay? So for a long time, in some of my One Piece theory videos, I basically talked about the idea of a glass fruit, okay? Or I basically translated it as the idea of the Gaara Nami, okay? Which Gaara itself would be short from Garasu, the Japanese word for the substance of glass, okay? Now, another translation name that I basically gave was the Nico Nomi, okay? Nico could be a reference to the idea of the Japanese onomatopoeia for smile, okay? Or smiling, okay? Which I basically took as a concept or reference from the Nico calendar, right? Basically being the mood index, which is sometimes used in like work conditions to basically measure how a person's mood is during that specific day of their work environment, okay? Alright. So, going over in general, right? The Gaara Nami, okay? Or Gaara, okay? The translations that can be used here is 5, 6, okay? Ga for 5 and Ra for 6, okay? Ra can also be used for 0, but it can also be used for 6, okay? So Gaara can also be 5, 6, okay? Alright. I like the idea of sort of presenting here that it's a whole notion of a sun god exists. If we had a moon god to actually throw into context here, using the idea of their body being made of glass to sort of parallel the uniqueness of rubber seemed like a good situation, okay? And I've even thrown in the discussion here that, you know, I've always wanted to use Nami for the context of this Delphoid itself, right? And I still feel like Oda is using Nami for a potential reason of this, okay? I mean, let's think about this, okay? It's literally odd here that Rox does mention that his power will only be awakened by Hero, okay? And that when you look at it in context here, Oda has made so many unique panels of Nami becoming a giant in the last couple of like years and stuff like that. The first one we got was 1111, and yeah, 1111. Yeah, that I'm pretty sure I'm not getting my numbers mixed up, okay? But it's basically this one right here, okay? And then the second one we got is in 1121, okay? This is the second one we got, okay? And this by far is probably the best one of any of them, right? Because we get the best view of Nami ever, right? Literally gigantic babe. Yes! Okay. And now following the current one, 1156, okay? Nami was chosen to be one of the Straw Hats, actually giganticized, okay? Now in context here, when you're looking at her, she feels more normal in the same sense, right? She feels like she's normal, but in context of when you look at the other Straw Hats, potentially with Robin and, you know, Jinbei, Brook, Chopper, or Usopp, how they are small and comparing the size to Luffy and Nami, who feel like they're normal size, but they are basically also can be seen as giganticized, okay? So, because that whole notion here, and I mentioned the whole idea that I feel like the whole concept that Oda could be introducing another Delphoid just like the Gomu Nami, right? Where instead of it being someone's body turns into rubber, their body turns into glass, okay? Now, yes, I could be completely overthinking that idea. I could be completely stretching that theory out completely. No pun intended on Luffy's Delphoid, right? But silly. Just for context here, I do think it's important to basically throw out some unique possibilities, okay? Now, yes, because we're discussing a lot of Delphoids that have already been revealed in series, it could be very well possible that these two Delphoids that Rox is after are two brand new ones that we've never seen before. And if that's the case, it opens up a whole bunch of floodgates that we have no idea to even speculate on what exactly they could be, okay? So, overall, my point is this, okay? Whatever the Delphoids that Rox is after, we don't know, right? We'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and, literally that's how it goes, right? We are just going to have to wait and see to find out for sure, right? To really understand what exactly they could be, okay? Now, I've gone over the whole general context here of some of the most logical Delphoids. There's probably plenty of other ones to really throw in there. A lot of people have thrown in their own ideas and theories and discussions. Even talked about the idea of what exactly Rox could actually do with the Delphoids in general, like that. We know for a fact that Rox is aiming for something important here, okay? So all we can do at this point in time is just wait until Oda reveals it, okay? So, yeah, so that will basically do it for this video, like that. Thank you so much for joining me. Hey, my name is 4D Clif, okay? And I'm glad you actually had a time to join me for my discussion on this topic of the video, alright? If you liked my video, you liked anything I discussed, please let me know in the comment section below, alright? feel free to subscribe to the channel, hit notification bells, share the video if you feel like it needs to be shared, or do whatever you feel like you need to do, right? I really want to build on my channel. I really want to build on my contacts as much as possible, and that can only happen if you guys are willing to subscribe to the channel, right? So that will be it. Thank you so much, and who knows, right? Maybe there is a possibility, right? Maybe there is a possibility that Oda. I mean, what if we think about something here, right? What if Oda is planning on getting this devil fruit that is basically mentioned tonight, right? What if Oda is planning that and we just don't realize it? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, and I'm perfectly fine with it, whatever route Oda chooses. But I just want to throw it out there for context, okay? So that will do it for today's video. Thank you so much. You all have a great day. Goodbye, everybody.